Are you looking to get ready, be prepared, and transform your financial future? Then you've come to the right place. This is the Get Ready Money Podcast with Tony Stewart, where Tony has insightful conversations with financial experts who are changing the way we think about money. Catch up on the latest financial trends and hear practical advice from Tony and his expert guests so you can build healthy habits that work. Be empowered with tips for implementing small changes that can have a big impact on your financial future. So sit back and get ready to hear from today's guest.
Welcome to the Get Ready Money Podcast, changing the way we think about money. I'm pleased to be joined today by Cary Carbonaro. Cary is a financial advisor, speaker, author, and female advocate. In this episode, we'll be discussing Cary's insights on how we change the way we think about women and wealth. Cary, welcome to the Get Ready Money Podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. So happy to be here.
Yeah, excited for the conversation. So, to start out, tell us a little bit about yourself. What is your origin story?
So, it's a long story, but I'll make it fast. So I always knew the one thing in my life that I wanted to do was to help women. And it's interesting because there's a book called The One Thing. And you come to your life and you can look backwards and you try to find the thread that goes throughout your entire life. And I started in college and I founded a sorority for women to make them feel safe and secure. So that was my first thing that I did for women. Then when I got out of college, I started working at a bank, and I was really enjoying working with females rather than working with men. And I said, they seem to wait in line to meet with me. I used to have a line waiting to meet with me. So I'm like, I think I'm really good at this. So that was another thing. And then after I went through my divorce in my, I guess, early 40s, late 30s, I knew that I went through a horrible experience and I wanted to help women not go through the same experience that I went through with financial infidelity and a whole bunch of other stuff that happened to me. So another reason why I wanted to even double down on helping women even more. And that's when I wrote my first book, which was The Money Queen's Guide for Women Who Want to Build Wealth and Banish Fear. That was born out of my first divorce. And then, sorry, my divorce, not my first divorce. I'm not getting a second one. I'm on my final husband. So, and then my next book and origin was that I unfortunately was a victim, so to speak, of a company being sold. So my firm was United Capital, which I was a partner of, and my firm got sold to Goldman Sachs, which I had no say in. I had no say, and I got transferred along with my clients to Goldman Sachs, which was not female friendly at all and would not let me operate the way I operate, which is be an advocate for women, be vocal, be on social media, be on TV, speaking, writing, none of that. I couldn't do anything. I was completely shut down. It was a very dark period of my life. And also it was also during COVID. So I'm at this firm, I'm, forbidden from speaking or writing or having an opinion or helping women or marketing myself or holding myself out as a financial advisor. And then I wound up even worse. I couldn't get out of my contract and I wound up at the wrong firm on the other side of the Goldman fiasco. And then I moved again. So I moved all my clients 4 times in 5 years, which is an absolutely incredible feat for anybody who knows anything about being a financial advisor. And then I said, okay, after that experience, I need to write another book related to even deeper of why it's important for women to be treated with respect and dignity and what the industry is doing wrong with women today in wealth management and financial literacy for women. So that was my second book, was born out of that experience. And I still look back, and the connecting thread is helping women with money and helping women become financially free. And that's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
Well, that's awesome. And it's so cool that you have a passion and a mission because I think that changes everything for people, is when you have that. So, let's go a little bit deeper on this because I think sometimes, well, always in financial services is women, I don't want to say are overlooked, but there's definitely a shortage of representation in
Mhm.
financial service. When we look at CFPs, for example, CFPs are now 30% of women, and that's a
Nope,
huge
not
gain over the
30.
last.
Nope, it's
It's
not
still
30.
not
It's
30?
it's 23.8 or something like that out of the 100,000. So yeah, it's still not even 24%.
Wow, I thought it was 30% for some reason. So I I must have
If we
misread.
were, that would be even better. That would be fantastic. I mean, that's where we want to go. And even that's still low.
Well, it's ridiculously low considering 50% of people are women.
Right,
Actually, it's a little bit higher in the US than 50%
right.
are women. So, so do you think that it's an issue in financial services itself? Is it an issue that's endemic to CFPs? I mean, why are
No,
there
it's
not enough
across the
women?
it's across the board. It's not just CFPs, it's financial planning professionals in general, right? So that number of CFPs, which is, almost 24%, has not really moved that much in a 2 decades. So it really has moved like a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. It was like 21, 22% 20 years ago, and now it's almost 24. So a really small move. The CFP board and the Center for Financial Planning, both of which I'm quite involved with, have a lot of plans to move that number, but we've got a lot of issues related to it. First, most women don't know what career path to take when they get in. People look at myself, and I'm a rainmaker. So I'm somebody who brings in the clients, and hunter gatherer gets the clients. That is the most difficult role. It's the highest paid role. It's the most challenging role. And a lot of women are very turned off by that role because you only make what you bring in. So it's kind of like you hunt what you kill, and that's what you get paid. So that is not a comfortable role for most women. Most women want a stable salary, some opportunity for advancement, maybe to be on a team, maybe to not be responsible for getting the clients. Everybody's different. Every woman's different. But I like the fact that we could career path women in, that they don't have to be a hunter gatherer, and they don't have to be the rainmaker, and they don't have to be the one going out to get the clients. They could be part of a team. They could be because I always say that there's two different types of advisors. There's finders and minders. And once in a while, you're both, but it's much harder to do both. So there's, a finder is a different skill set than a minder, and they're both just as important because if I'm bringing in the client, my number two is taking care of the client and making sure everything's done. That is not my role at all. And that is a totally different skill set, and somebody who's really, really good at details and getting into the nitty gritty of what's going on underneath the numbers. I'm much more high level, high picture, up here, and he's down here, and that's fine. It works great for us, but you need both. So that's one of the issues. The second issue is women don't even know it's a profession. Women don't even know that this is something that they could do with their career. So, CFP's only been around for a little over 50 years. So we're a very new profession. And again, male dominated, usually 80% men, 20% women. So people don't go to college and say, I'm going to be a CFP. Like the numbers are small, and so when you're in high school or you're in elementary school, girls don't say, I want to grow up and be a CFP. It's unless, their family is one, or a family member is one, that they can see it. But that was another campaign that we did back in the day called If You See It to Be It type thing, where we were showing different young CFPs and African American and Latino, and women, so we could try to put it out there that it's a thing. One of the events that I did with the CFP board was we went to the Girl Scout International Conference, and we met with thousands of girls aged 5 through 18. And we talked about the CFP profession, and we had, future CFP stickers and logos and a little picture so they could do selfie sticks that said future CFP. And I would say 99% of the people that we spoke to didn't even know what it was. So they know what a lawyer is, they know what accountant is, they don't know what a CFP is. So that is our role and my role as an ambassador for the CFP board, to spread the word of what this profession is to women. So, and also make it so that it's not all about math, and, it's about behavioral finance, and it's about, connecting with people and all the things that women are really great at. Women are great planners. They just they don't think of it that way. Like, you think about it, a woman is great at planning parties and her wedding and vacations and things like that, but they may not necessarily think, oh, I'm going to plan for my financial future. But guess what? If they put their mind to it, they're fantastic at it. And they just have to, but what I find in my experience is women don't wake up one day and say, I'm going to hire a financial planner. It's usually during some sort of a crisis that a woman wants a financial planner. So it's usually a death, a divorce, disability, job loss, like all bad things. And that's when a woman says, oh my gosh, I think I need help. So I know that's a really long answer. And I don't even think I got it. I don't even have I don't even really have the answer. I don't think anybody does.
Yeah, well, no, but I think you tackle a big part of it is, that it's the whole process of coming into the industry. And I think that's a huge struggle, not only for financial planning. I come from an insurance background. I know we're struggling with that in the insurance community, bringing people into the insurance field, bringing women into the insurance field. I can think of so many meetings, when I was involved with life insurance associations, where it was pretty much all men. And I don't know if that's changed that much. I don't go to industry events anymore, but when I look at the leadership of these organizations, it's mostly men. But it's a crazy world and statistic that. But I think you're right. Is that it could be something in college. It could be something where women are encouraged to come into the industry, where I think women are turned off. That this is just, from my understanding about how the way the industry works. But it gets back to exactly what you said, is like, okay, well, coming into the industry, I mean, the first thing I was given is like, okay, you got to go out there and get clients. Right. Not learn how to do the business. Before you even learn how to do the business, you have a very low bar to get your license. And then you're out there trying to get clients and figure out how to do that. And then, oh, by the way, you have to figure out how all the insurance products work. But, that's kind of secondary. Get the clients first rather than learning. And I think that's a turnoff for a lot of people, men and women, that these industries are tough.
100%. And also, I mean, we have another issue with women is sometimes we can bring them in, but they don't stay, because it's a very difficult environment for women, much harder for women to be in financial services than for men. And I talk about this a lot in the book, where there's so many things that you just don't even think about. Like, the language is very male, the experiences are male. Like, if you're going to a conference as a woman, you can't stay out and hang out at the bar late at night because something bad's going to happen. And you have to put yourself in, you can't even put yourself in these situations. And so a lot of times things happen, and then women get turned off by the industry, and then they're like burnt out, or say, I'm not going to do this, or switch careers. And so that's just a super shame when that happens. And that's why, we're trying to do all these great things for women. There's a lot of mentorship programs. Ashton Thomas, my firm, has one that we're just instituting. I'm part of the WGA, which is the Women's Leadership Alliance, and they also have a mentorship program for women who are financial advisors in the industry. And also it's agnostic, firm agnostic. So it's all different firms involved. So you don't just get the perspective of your one firm, which I think is also positive because everybody's has such different, cultures from the firms that they're at.
Yeah, no, 100%. And when you mention conferences, I have heard some very scary stories about things involving women. And it's just like, we're all professionals and we should act like professionals. Unfortunately, some people don't. And a lot of time it's I think the older generation of men, from what I've heard. I'm sure you've heard a lot more stories than I have. But yeah, I think men need to own it. And
See, and I don't even think it's the older generation. I think it's all generations. I
really,
mean,
okay.
the problem is, you're at a hotel, there's alcohol involved, people just do what they're going to do and don't even think that they're in a professional setting. So, they think they're at a bar, so whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So that's why I don't even let myself get in those situations ever. I haven't for years and years and years. So I pulled myself out of that probably in my 30s. And I said, there's no way I'm going to this. I'm not participating in any of this stuff. And so, unfortunately, I definitely miss out on things because a lot of nice things, great things happen, but also some bad things happen. So because I don't want the bad things to happen, I miss out on things, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and that's a shame. And I think that's one of the things that we need to think about as an industry, both men and women, is, that these things exist and we need to understand and think of other ways to, I don't know, interact, to live, to work, but also to take responsibility. I think, and as a man, to own it is, we all have mothers, sisters, daughters, wives, whatever, that it's a matter of respect and respecting other people. But yeah, we could go way down that road, but I think that's a huge part of it. So, let's talk a little bit about women and wealth. What inspired you to write Women and Wealth?
So I knew that I had a second book in me for quite some time. This book is very research based. It has all the research out there related to women and money. And so we've got incredible stuff from Cerulli, from Harvard Business Review, from McKinsey. Really, McKinsey's study that they did in 2020, which says women are the next wave of growth in wealth management. That study was really the basis of this book. And this book and this study says by 2030, women will control 2/3 of the nation's wealth, which we are now 5 short years away from. What's interesting is this came out in 2020, which means it was 10 years away. So for the last 5 years, nobody's done anything. So here we are, we're coming up on it, and it's so close I can touch it. So I've been talking about it for the past 5 years, and now we're even closer. And go even further, Cerulli just came out with a very recent study this January, end of January, that said women are going to control more than 2/3 of the nation's wealth, but the number is by 2048, it's going to be 54 trillion with a T. And by the way, the 30 billion that women are going to, 30 trillion that women are going to control in 2030 is as large as the US GDP.
Wow.
Yeah. So these numbers are incredible. It is the most incredible business case why you should make your practice female friendly and what you need to do to change that. And also the other study, which everybody knows, is how many women leave their advisors after their husband dies. So it's between 70 and 90%, depending on which study you look at, right? So that number has not changed since they've been measuring that. So, which is at least 50 years, right? And so obviously that if we were doing it right, that number would be changing as well. And that number has not changed either. So it's a business case. And I always say, this is not a DE&I issue. This is a dollars and cents issue. Everybody who's an advisor should be reading this book and learning what they don't know what they don't know. They might have unconscious bias. They might have blind spots. There's things that they maybe just don't know. And it's nobody's fault. It's just they don't walk in women's shoes. So I'm going to teach them how to walk in women's shoes and what needs to be done to change it so that it's friendly for women. I had a friend of mine post yesterday on LinkedIn a story about a list of all these women that she had met with and all the reasons why they fired their advisor. The advisor didn't talk to me. The advisor didn't look at me. The advisor ignored me. The advisor treated me like, terrible. Like it just was like a list. And I'm like, I cannot believe this is like happening right now today. So it's just, to me, I find it interesting because sometimes I get the pushback, we're doing everything right. And I'm like, no. So I am hoping that this book changes the industry and really makes it female friendly and changes the client experience for women. And if it does, then I've succeeded. And I will be very, very happy because I made a mark on this world, exactly what I wanted to do. I hope that it's widely read. I hope that every advisor on the planet reads it. And even women who want to, I even said, I spoke with somebody from Yahoo Finance, I think it was last week. And she said to me, I think every woman should read this book because this is how they should be treated with their advisor. And if they're not, then they should find a new advisor.
That's awesome. So, let's talk about that just for a minute. Why, a lot of women don't feel like they can step up or they should step up. I mean, I think you know where I'm going with this is, how can women start to take control and feel their power in this situation if they feel like, what, this is my husband's financial advisor, or, I'm turned off by the industry. How can a woman start to feel comfortable?
Well, first of all, they need to trust
herself?
they need to trust their gut, because if they don't feel right, so they need to listen to their own intuition, because women have incredible intuition and they need to get themselves in a better situation. In the one that I was just talking about with the person from Yahoo Finance, it was her husband's advisor, and she went out and found her own advisor, and her husband followed her to her advisor. So I thought that was a good story, that he came with her rather than keeping his own. Or you have two separate ones. That happens sometimes, although not under my watch, it doesn't. But in general, some people do that. If one feels comfortable with one and one feels, because it's a joint, it's your money together. So you really should have one advisor, I believe. And
Yeah,
also,
agree.
you have to feel comfortable. You have to feel like you trust the person. They have to have empathy. They have to have communication that resonates with you. I always say, the industry talks about, beating the S&P 500, and that is very male language, and that does not resonate with women. Women want to hear, I'm okay, I'm going to be okay. I'm not going to outlive my money. I'm not going to be a bag lady. All the things that women want to hear, and why. It's simple communication, and also tying their goals and wants, which is so basic, I think, to their financial, to their money. Money is amorphous. It's nothing. It's what you do with the money and what it means to you and what it represents to you. And does it mean that your children get to go to Ivy League schools? Does it mean you get to buy a second house? Does it mean you get to retire early? Does it mean you have to not worry about money ever? Does it mean, you make more money from your investments than you do from your day job? These are the things that I like to know, and I want to, talk about with my clients. And that's whatever's the most important thing to them is what's important to me.
That's awesome. So, how can advisors better serve their female clients? So there are some advisors who are like, hey, I know I need to do a better job with my female clients, but I'm not sure how. What tips would you give
Read
them?
my book.
All right.
It's so funny because
That's easy.
it's so funny. Everybody says that to me. And I said, they're like, can you give me one thing? I'm like, there's probably 250 things in my book. Do a couple of them and you're on the right road. So, and for an example, I'll just give you one example. Like I actually have a quiz in my book, which is actually not my quiz. It's actually my friend's quiz, Kathleen Kingsbury, and it's reprinted with permission from McGraw-Hill. And it's how female friendly is your practice? And it's a quiz. And we go through and you can take it and see where you are because there's blind spots that you don't know what you don't know. I also have the unconscious bias quiz from Harvard in there where you can go in and take that quiz and see where another spot where your blind spots are. There's literally so many things. I mean, there's 23 chapters and there's probably every single one of them is action packed. So I have in the book at the end of each chapter, questions to ask yourself and questions to ask your clients, your female clients. So there's so much information in those chapters. It's so funny because I can't just say just one thing because there's just too many, but if you do even a portion of it, you're on the right road. If you do all of it, you're going to be on the perfect road, but let's start baby steps and then see where you can go from there. But I mean, I would like firms to change their client experience to make it more female friendly. I would like them to use behavioral finance tools, work great with women. The language needs to change. I mean, there's just so many things. Also, women like women-only events. Women like women-only meetings. If you have a couple, why don't you just meet with the woman, just see how that goes, and see if you get different questions than if you just meet with them as a couple.
Yeah, well, and I love Kathleen Kingsbury and the work she's done is for people who are watching and listening to this podcast, is you can also listen to my conversation with Kathleen about her latest book, Breaking Money Silence. She also puts out some fantastic stuff in this area. But this is something I've heard from so many women on the podcast is that women are more concerned with the bigger issues of goals. Am I going to, like you said, am I going to outlive my money? I want to take care of my kids. I want to make sure that I feel secure. And men do come in and they want to talk about like, oh, what's the best investment? Where am I going to get the best return? Right. Instead of solving actual issues. And I think that's part of the mismatch in the industry is that you have to be able to think about both. But I think as an industry, we need to start talking about goals first anyway. And that will help with this transition.
It's interesting to me because as a CFP, that's the way we're taught and trained. You do financial planning first. That's step one before you recommend investments. And so that's just the way we were taught. And so to me, it's interesting that sometimes it's backwards or sometimes it's no financial planning at all and just recommendations on investments. And I always think, how can you do that? Because you don't even have the whole picture.
Yeah, and that was something I struggled with as a consultant. I was a fee-based insurance consultant working predominantly with wealth managers, trust officers, litigation attorneys. But that was always something, like the first question might be is like, okay, is this policy any good? And is this life insurance policy any good? And it's more like, well, what do you want to accomplish? What's your goal? If I don't even know what you're trying to accomplish, I can't tell you if this policy is any good or not. That we have to look at that question. So, let's jump into what I call the Get Ready Money questions. These are questions that I ask all of my guests who are a little bit more rapid fire. The first one is, what basic money concept do you wish people knew?
That's a good one. And I always believe that the basic 101 planning blocks for your future is spend less than you make. So it doesn't matter who you are, if you're making $1 million a year or you're making, $10,000 a year, you spend less than you make. And that's good. That extra money in your budget is going to create your financial future. That
is such great advice because I know in working with so many high net worth clients who are making, what I consider almost ridiculous salaries here in the San Francisco Bay Area, that they still struggled with their budget. That they got a more expensive house, they had cars, they went on crazy expensive vacations, and at the end of the day is like they were still struggling to pay their bills at
Yeah.
the end of the month.
Yeah.
So
It
it's a
doesn't matter.
pretty
It doesn't
simple.
matter what you make. It's what you keep and what you take home and what you have left over. I always say that. Always, always. It's the most important thing.
Yeah, I love that. Doesn't matter what you make, it's how much you keep. So the next question is, what is one simple thing people can do each year to set themselves up for financial success?
Know their numbers. And so what that means is every single year you should be doing your budget and your net worth, which is asset minus liabilities equals net worth. And every single year that number should be going up unless you're doing something wrong, because you're constantly paying off debt, putting money away, saving for retirement, paying, all of those things. So I know that 2008, which was the financial crisis, was the only year that me and my clients lost net worth value because that was an extreme year. But then, of course, by 2009, we were all back to even and even up. So, but in general, that is what somebody should do every single year. And they should know them off the top of their head.
That's great advice. Yeah, if you're not tracking these things, you can't see if you're making progress or if you
Right.
have problematic areas. It's just like anything. You do a checklist to make sure that you're not missing anything. So
Right.
that's fantastic advice. So what is one habit that people can change when it comes to their money?
Automatically saving. I think put it on autopilot. So I always say, if you automatically save, you're never going to miss it. So it's kind of like even contributing to like your 401k, right? So if you're contributing to your 401k and you're maxing it out, great, then you're already doing it. But if you want to do even more than that, you could take it immediately out of your, let's say your paycheck every 2 weeks, you have it auto coming out and auto invested. So you don't even think about it. You're dollar cost averaging, you're doing it over time, and you're literally pulling it out of your account so that it's not there. You don't see it, you don't touch it, you don't have it, it's not there, and it's already invested for you.
That's awesome advice, because I think that's something that sometimes people, they pay their bills first, then they do their discretionary expenses, go to the movies, whatever, go to
Right.
concerts, and then they save whatever's left. And that can be a struggle instead of taking
Nope, you
care
move
of
it
your goals
first.
first.
You move it
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, you have to move it first. Love that advice. So what money myth are you trying to break?
Money what?
Myth. What money myth are you trying to
Myth.
break?
That women are not good with money. That is definitely a myth. I don't know who perpetuated that, but women are good with money, and they just need to be feel confident in themselves. Women can do money.
I love that. And I think that's something, that I've heard from a lot of women is that lack of confidence. Do you have a tip for women on how they can start to feel confident and to feel their power?
So education is a really important part of that, and financial literacy and education, that's a very important part of teaching women about money. That's a lot of that is in my book of talking about that. But women have to, if they don't know what they don't know, they're certainly not going to be confident, right? So if you just teach them the basics, like literally what I just went over with you now, or I teach them how to do a budget, I show them their numbers, I show them their investments, I get into the basics that they need to know. And over time, they get much, much, much more confident because now they're recognizing it, they're remembering it, they're feeling confident. They know that I'm their advocate and they know that everything I'm going to tell them is in their best interest. So that's another thing, if they can find like somebody who they trust, who to be like almost like an accountability partner with them. So that's what I feel like I am. That's my role. I feel like I'm an advisor, an advocate, and a coach for my clients, and a teacher. I'm all of those things. And so that's what you need. You need somebody who's gonna guide you and teach you so that you understand money and you feel confident in what your decisions are and or your collaborative decisions with your advisor.
Yeah, I think that it's so important because one of the things that I think about is that there are some personal finance, there's some women who are personal finance educators who have followings of hundreds of thousands of people: Tiffany Elish, Daisha Kennedy, Bola Sakambi, Tori Dunlap, but all their stuff is education first. And that they've amassed these huge followings outside of the traditional financial services channel. And I think it's exactly that, is that well, one, they're women, but two, it is they talk about education first and building confidence. And, and that's hugely successful, that kind of approach. So I don't know if
Yeah.
you've seen that as well.
Well, no, I just know based on my experience with my clients, which is, a smaller sub segment, but it's very important for women to feel that they are knowledgeable about money, because otherwise they won't make a decision. They'll feel paralyzed because they can't move forward because they don't feel like they have enough information. So that's my job, is to make sure that they understand everything that we're doing and we're talking, and I put it in language that they can understand. And, I never talk in jargon, and that's really important because the industry talks a lot of jargon.
Mm-hmm. And the four people that I mentioned, because I think Tiffany has 400,000 people in her Dream Catchers community, is that she's a former school teacher who started writing about her budget and, her struggles. And I think that really connected with people because she talks like a person. She has a regular conversation and she doesn't use jargon. And I think that really resonates with people. So, let's get out the time machine for a minute. What advice would you give your younger self if you could go back in time knowing what you know now about money?
Well, so I knew about money from a very young age. So I am the wrong person to ask this to because I already knew everything at a young age. So I practiced what I preached, and I could have retired at age 40 if I wanted to, because I did everything that I tell my clients to do. I work because I choose to work at this stage of my life because I want to make an impact on this industry and this world. And so I choose to work for all those reasons, not because I need to work and not because I need to make money. So it's a very freeing, powerful position to be in, so that I only work because I want to. And so it's the most incredible. I mean, financial freedom is the most amazing thing on this planet. So I wouldn't change anything, except if I went back, I would say, don't marry that guy and don't go to Goldman Sachs.
Okay, well, fortunately, Goldman Sachs is not a sponsor of the podcast, so I think we're safe on that. So, and marriage advice is beyond this podcast. So, for marriage advice, please tune into other podcasts. So, Cary, what is your number one favorite go-to money resource, whether it's a podcast, book, newsletter, app, or website? What do you turn to?
So I love Bloomberg, and I'm a huge Bloomberg Business Week fan. Love, love, love that. And I also love the Wall Street Journal. So I wake up every morning, and those are my two go-to sources. And they've been for 30 years. So, I mean, and they're still just as good as they were 30 years ago.
Yeah, no, I remember when I first came into business, getting the Wall Street Journal on your desk every morning, was pretty much a must. And, it's still helpful. And I subscribe to Bloomberg. I think they change their five things every morning. But yeah, it's a great way to start the day to get a
And
sense of,
both of those are also party agnostic. So I like that too. So there's like, it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican, you're getting the news. So I love that part.
yeah, and that's nice in today's world. So
Mhm.
to wrap everything up, what is your number one tip on changing the way we think about money?
Okay, so I would say, and that's a really interesting one. I will bring back one of my favorite books of all times, which is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I would say it's achieve it. No, sorry. Let me see. Sorry. Conceive it, believe it, achieve it.
I love it. And that is a great book that I would recommend to anybody. So, Cary, where can people learn more about you and pick up a copy of Women in Wealth?
Sure. So my website is carycarbonaro.com. You can also find me anywhere on social media. I'm always under Cary Carbonaro. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all the same. You can buy the book. If you go to my website, it's Cary Carbonaro books. Click on that, and there's a link to all the places, Barnes and Noble and Amazon and Books A Million and all the other places, all the other retailers, a lot of indie bookstores as well. So.
Cool. And for everybody watching and listening, as always, there will be links to all of Cary's social media channels, her website. Usually, in terms of the book, I link to bookshop.org. I like to give a shout out to them because they support independent bookstores. But yeah, you can find Cary's book everywhere. So, Cary, thanks for joining us today on the Get Ready Money podcast.
Thank you, Tony, for having me. It was super fun.
Yeah, this was great. Appreciate all your time and insights. And thank you, everyone, as always, for tuning in this episode of the Get Ready Money podcast. If you learned something today to change the way you think about money, please be sure to subscribe and to tell a friend. Until next time, let's change the way we think about money.